Hi, I'm Niamh Byrne and you're listening to the HerSport Energia AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. Think of the possibilities.
Welcome back to the HerSport Energia AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. My name is Alanna Cunnane and today I'm joined by former Irish Rugby international Hannah Tyrrell. How are you keeping, Hannah?
Yeah, all good. Looking forward to dissecting a good week of rugby.
In horrible conditions as well. That's a theme throughout all the games and a big impact as well on them as well.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, the first half of the season is usually marred by those winter conditions, and it's usually, the teams that can deal with them the most effectively that manage to get the most out of it and get a couple of points. But definitely last weekend there were some really, really tricky conditions that both teams had to contend with.
For sure, and there we saw Suttonians, Railway Union, Old Belvedere and UL Bows pick up the wins. You can catch all the highlights back on Irish Rugby's YouTube channel. Did you manage to make it to any games, or were you watching the highlights along with the rest of us?
No, I was a fair weather fan this week, to be honest. No, look, I've had a few busy weekends and this was my first one off, but I did catch the Old Belvedere stream. Probably played in slightly nicer conditions, and they put on a good show and had Jenny Murphy on comms, which is always a good positive. She's a wealth of knowledge, so I managed to catch that one. I'm probably a little bit biased towards them, so I'm always going to choose them over others.
Very good, and it was a good one to watch as well. Obviously, as you say, the Energia stream available there to watch, but plenty of stories coming out of the Energia AIL over the last while. In particular, one that stood out this week was Blackrock's Amelia McFarland, who bravely spoke of her experience coming back from cancer. Such an inspirational story, and really, I suppose, one to be admired.
Yeah, look, obviously a tough one to take for her, I'm sure, when she was initially diagnosed, but for her to get through that and come through the treatment and kind of get on the other side. I know she's not fully clear now, but to be back playing rugby almost a year since she was diagnosed is a phenomenal feat, and it's a credit to her, and it's a credit to her teammates as well, to be around her and supporting her. She's from Donegal initially, but she's living down in Dublin, studying down here, and Blackrock have taken her in under her wing, and for her to get her first start for Blackrock there last week, and be back playing, it's just it's really, really admirable, and she should be so proud. And she's a role model for any of those who have been diagnosed in the past or have been struck down by any illness to get back. And I'm sure it was a really nice goal and achievement for her to do that. But look, fair play to her. It's just something she can look back on and be immensely proud of.
For sure, and it even shows as well how much of an outlet rugby can be for everyone as well.
Absolutely. I've always spoken about why I really fell in love with rugby. Absolutely, I love the game, but for me it's the camaraderie and the rugby community and the social side of things. It's such an inclusive and welcoming sport, and everybody, not just your own teammates but the other teams as well, really pull together in tough times, and I'm sure Blackrock were a massive support to her when she needed it and a huge outlet.
You could see that rugby camaraderie as well when it was announced Alison Miller is to join the Rugby Players Ireland Hall of Fame. What do you make of that one? Yeah,
look, delighted for her, and for me this is inevitable, and she's the best winger we've produced ever in our lifetime for Ireland. Luckily enough for me, or maybe not as some might say, when I played for Ireland, myself and Ali were roommates, particularly during the 2017 World Cup, and she's an unusual character, to say the least. She's driven and she's determined, and she was, she has some freakish strength. Her speed was phenomenal. Her footwork, her fend was brilliant. But outside of the pitch, she was a character, to say the least. She'd make people laugh. She'd come up with some crazy, crazy ideas, and she'd rub people up the wrong way. But she is a wonderful person with a heart of gold. And she's finished playing a couple of years now and has made a huge impact on the community. And obviously, she was also an Old Belvo teammate as well. She started rugby late in life. So for me, when I joined at the age of 23, she was telling me that she didn't start rugby till she was 26. And look what she managed to achieve in her career, both in sevens and 15s. And there's no one else more deserving of a place in this team. You know, she scored a hat-trick the day that we won the Six Nations in 2015, and a phenomenal person on and off the pitch, who, you know, everybody has a good word and a good story to tell about her. She loved her cup of tea and a good story after training, so she's fondly remembered both on and off the pitch.
Any crazy roommate stories for us?
Just that she was just a bit mad overall, to be honest. I just remember in the World Cup, it felt like a really, really long 3 weeks. You know, the 2017 World Cup wasn't going too well for us, you know, but she was always that beacon of positivity and light, regardless of what was happening. I do remember in a sevens tournament, we were over in playing in Vegas for the very first time, and we had a really early game on the Sunday. I think it was like 8:30, and we had to be up at 6 a.m. And you know, Miller probably wasn't the best person to be around first thing in the morning, to be honest. You know, but I just remember her dedication and stuff like that. But we played Fiji that morning, and she broke her arm, and play wasn't stopped, and the referee didn't see it and didn't know and didn't stop, and she went on and she made 2 more tackles with that broken arm to stop Fiji from scoring a try. You know, and it was only then that she managed to come off, and it just shows that, one, her ability, but her dedication and her perseverance. She wanted to be the best player out there, and she would put her body on the line for that. She ended up in a cast, and of course she got a nice bright pink cast after that. But for me, that just showed the length she was willing to do in an Ireland jersey. You know, and look, her exploits across her career are phenomenal. She was a super try scorer for us, and like, obviously her most famous try in that 2014 World Cup has been played thousands of times, you know, around the world. And yeah, look, she's missed. You've made me actually want to give her a text now after this and have a catch up. It's been a while.
Amazing. So going back to the current crop of players, I guess, Ireland under-20 international and UL Bows star Kate Flannery has really been impressing so far, and she's coming out on top on the stats front too. 20 points so far this season, closely followed by Railway Union's Nikki Cohey on 16. The two out halves are flying there, Hannah. Yeah,
look, obviously we're 2 rounds in, you know, plenty of rounds to go. At this moment in time, it is the kickers who are dominating, particularly in teams who maybe have had a couple of high scoring wins recently and therefore had another extra opportunities at kicking conversions. But yeah, look, Kate Flannery, still only 19 years of age, you know, playing really well at the minute, played under 20s for Ireland this year. And I think that's a huge stat. We also saw Corrigan from Belleville score 2 tries. She's an under 18 Irish international. And for me, this is highlighting the pathways and the developments that, you know, are being brought along. And this is the first year this year we've had an under-20s team. A couple of England and France and those have had teams for a couple of years now, so we're kind of catching up to them. But it shows that if we put the structures and pathways in place, that we will produce players at senior level that can compete and do really well. And I was really impressed by Kate Flannery. I saw her highlights, you know, kicking 10 out of 12 conversions this weekend is phenomenal achievement. You know, and she's only going to get better in that role. And it's whether she can bring that kind of game management skills along with obviously her clearly excellent kicking technique.
That development pathway that you're talking about is something Scott Bemand was really big on in his first press conference. What did you make of kind of what he was chatting about? He was obviously talking about those pathways and then big on clarity and purpose and this kind of thing too.
Yeah, look, he has a big job ahead of him. He's been in the role a couple of months now, but you know, his background being in with England Rugby, he obviously has a wealth of knowledge and experience. He's been in a successful team and knows what it takes in order to be successful and what we need to put in place. And I think his comments around clarity and goals and purpose is really, really important in that. If you want a team to be successful and to be heading in the right direction, we all have to have the one clear and common goal so we know what we're focusing on. But then we also need to know exactly how we're going to achieve that. And that's why those structures and that clarity in terms of team roles, individual roles, what direction we're going and why we're taking this direction or why we're doing what we're doing in order to achieve those goals. And I think it's really important for him to set them out early, you know, so that everybody understands what he's trying to achieve, and that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to be a step-by-step process in order to reach that end goal, which is obviously get out of WXV3 initially, first of all, and then start moving up, I suppose, the ranking spots in World Rugby and then in the Six Nations, obviously improving our position on last year. But but that will take time. But I'm really just impressed by him. As I said, he has that knowledge and that experience, and players should be kind of on his side in terms of looking to see what we can improve. Nobody wants to see what we saw last year, and I think his decision to pick Samantha Monaghan and Adele McMahon or Tricky as co-captains was a phenomenal one, because we've probably lost an awful lot of experienced players in the past, and with Nicola Friday stepping down at such a young age, and one of our most experienced players, I was kind of worried where we were going to find that leadership. For me, it's brilliant for someone like Adele McMahon. She's been around a really long time. She's just been plagued by injuries, so this would be a really great boost for her, and she gets to kind of shorten the load a little bit with someone like Sam Monaghan, who has been phenomenal for Ireland over the last number of years, and they can kind of bring that leadership together, and it's not all on one shoulders, and hopefully spread that to what will be a very youthful and inexperienced team for Ireland at this WXV3.
For sure. And then finally, just before we get into this round of fixtures, obviously he shed light as well on the unfortunate injury to Dervla Nicovard. She'll be a big miss.
Yeah, look, obviously, and when I was given some kind of predictions for, players of the year and all the rest and who was going to be a standout, Derv Nicovard had a phenomenal year last year, and I was hoping obviously to bring it into this year, but unfortunately the nature of rugby and it being a contact sport, she's come out on the wrong side of it, and unfortunately it's on her ACL and will be out for a significant amount of time. That is a huge blow for Ireland and for Munster and for Belvo as well, but look, injuries are part and parcel of the game. It's never nice to see, and I obviously wish her the best of luck on her success. I gave her a text last week to wish her well, but it's an opportunity for someone else to step up and grab a jersey, and particularly I know she's kind of been a bit of a hybrid player, playing hooker, back row and winger, so there's an opportunity particularly at hooker for somebody to step in there, and then back row where we're fairly competitive, there's an opportunity for a younger player to maybe show what they can do in the Energia AIL, and Scott might pick up on that and see how we go. But it's devastating, but unfortunately injuries are part and parcel of the game, and hopefully we get to see her back to her best next season.
Definitely. Well, getting into this weekend's Energia AIL action, we'll have a look back on the results since we last spoke. So Ballincollig played Suetonians, 12-5 the score in that one. Old Belvedere bet Wicklow 32-0. Railway Union versus Cook 71-7, and then UL Bows with a convincing win over Galwegians as well. We'll start off with the Ballincollig Suetonians one, Hannah. I suppose this is an interesting one because going into half time it was still 0-0. They were just struggling to break each other down for a bit. Yeah, look, obviously conditions played a massive role in this. The weather wasn't the nicest last weekend, and unfortunately these two would play, and you can tell by the flags there right in the middle of the screen that there's a really, really strong wind against Suetonians here, and they're really struggling to get out, having to carry the ball a little bit, and it gets a little messy in these conditions and they opt to kick. However, Ballincollig take massive advantage of this, and we have a huge break here by the fullback. But what impresses me the most, yes, there's poor tackling there by Suetonians, and they wish they do better. But the offloading and the slick hands in these conditions, in these wet conditions, to score that try by Alanna Cunnane is phenomenal. And Ballincollig started off really, really well last week, and they were hoping to go 2-0 up here and kind of get a bid spurt after not the best season last year. But Suetonians, we know, are strong. They were coached by Stephen Costello last year, who's moved on to Railway this year, but their strength mainly is their forward pack here, led by Mary Healy at prop. And in both tries that we're going to see here, the forwards just basically start to tuck it up the jumper, carry really hard into contact, making meters each time, and they managed to get over the line here. And at these close quarters and in these conditions when it's wet and you're practically going to slide and make contact and win the gain line every time, it's very, very difficult to defend from a Ballincollig point of view. Suetonians were really well worth their win here in the two tries. So they score here, and then their second try is another kind of up the jumper by forwards, and Mary Healy gets over in the corner, and the big thing here is that there was no pressure, so they score here. The conversion is easy because it's nice and close to the post, so they're 7-5 up, and then kind of the pressure is off here a little bit when they score their second try, because the conversion ends up being out in the corner in these difficult conditions. Yeah, it's really emphasised there, isn't it?
Like you can see it with the flags and the camera work, you can see the rain coming down, but they recognise that it's not a day for wingers, that it's difficult to get these passes in, the wind is a factor, and they see their strength. There's huge carry there up the middle, and they just manage to keep it tight. They get their structure going. They recognise it's a team game, and And it's just very clever play, and they go back down the short side. They recognise Ballincollig have overfolded a little bit, and they managed, as I said, to score in the corner here by Mary Healy. And look, well worth their win. Not the best conditions, as we mentioned. Both teams do have to play in it, and Suttonians just managed it a little bit better in this regard.
Like, would that be frustrating from a Ballincollig point of view, given that they did have the lead and they kind of let it slip?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as I said, they wanted to get off to a really good start in this game, and they did. But unfortunately, you know, when you're defending in those tight quarters, you'll eventually run out of numbers if the attacking team have kind of got their structure right, and they'll just be looking to next week's game and hopefully better conditions, but also a better result.
And as you say, in those tough conditions, it's all the more, I suppose, harder to even get the tries and get the scores.
Yeah, look, like you won't see any fancy rugby being played. You're not really going to get any missed passes. You're not going to see your wingers dazzling and shining and all the rest, because, as you said, you want to keep it tight. You want to keep it. The ball gets slippy. You want to just short, quick passes and try and move it there. But as a former winger myself, they're the frustrating days, but they're the ones that you have to trust your teammates and trust that they're getting the job done for you.
Yeah, and moving on then to Old Belvedere's win over Wicklow, 32-0 the score there eventually come full time. It must be kind of frustrating for the teams to have such big score gaps. I know that's not the biggest of the weekend, but it is a convincing one nonetheless. Yeah,
look, I think the most frustrating thing here for Wicklow is that they were shut out. Old Belvedere still obviously have a few players away with internationals. Wicklow struggling, missing a few players that they would have had last year, particularly obviously Ella Roberts, who was one of their standouts, is unfortunately not playing for this. But Belleville's forwards really step up in this game, and we're going to see this in some of their clips here where their scrum was absolutely dominated and Wicklow had no reply to that, no response. And nearly every time that Old Belvedere got a penalty, they were opting for the scrum because they knew they'd end up with either an advantage or a penalty. Gemma Farrell chooses that's within range and hits the penalty to go ahead. She kicks 2 penalties, scores a try, and I think hits 2 conversions in this game to get 14 points. But here we see again Gemma Farrell pulling the strings off the back of a scrum. She throws an absolutely lovely dummy here on what's meant to be a DSP, a dummy switch pass. Wicklow are in 6s and 7s. They don't know who's picking up who. They don't know where the ball is, and it's a fairly easy try in the end. A really nice one for Gemma Farrell to be able to spot that. Really good awareness, but a little bit on poor defence from the Wicklow side. As I mentioned, once again, we see here Old Belvedere recognising the strength they have at set piece and at scrum. And here is where we see Katie Corrigan. We'll get a penalty again, but they decide to go quick. They recognise the space is on, and the ball ends up in the hands of number 13 here, Katie Corrigan, under 18 Irish international. Skips a few tackles here and finishes brilliantly, showing her pace and her heels. And she plays a prominent role in the next 2 tries that we're going to see, particularly this one here where poor kick again, and a lot of these tries come from kind of Wicklow's misfortune. Yes, you can't do anything with the scrum here, but Emma Tilley does really well, another young and upcoming Irish international. Katie Corrigan here, her fence, I think she gets 3 fens in this, inside her own 22, 3 fens to finish it off. Looks like she's about to finish the try, and there is an absolutely brilliant cover tackle there from the Wicklow player. But Katie still managed to get the offload. Elise O'Byrne-White grabs onto it there, her experience bringing massive knowledge. And who gets on the end of it but try merchant Leslie Ring, you know, an old experienced head of Belvo, gets on the end of that and says, thank you very much. That's what I get for chasing play down the pitch and all my hard work. But Old Belvedere, well worth their win. A bonus point here, but Wicklow be really disappointed because they rarely fire a shot in this game. If you're seeing, like, all these highlights are all about Belvo going forward. Wicklow barely had any possession in this game. They can't really use the weather as an excuse. Yes, it wasn't the nicest conditions, but it wasn't exactly what we saw in the Ballincollig game. And once again here we see that Emma Tilley to the fore again, gets on a try here. And Katie Corrigan finishes off with the try last minute for Belva. And they kind of run away with this. And Wicklow probably haven't hit the heights that we've seen them hit last season. And they'll be disappointed with their slow start here now. So they're winless. And they'll be looking for a run of games where they can kind of get their confidence back, get their players back in, and, you know, just try and get that morale back up a little bit, because they have some really good rugby players here, you know, and they weren't given a chance. Belvo were too good and too slick here. Really, really nice hands by Belvo. As I mentioned, Emma Tilley to the fore again. She gets taken down here, and what Belvo do really, really well is they move the ball wide and they stretch a team. So they're here right inside their own 5 metre line from the touchline here, and you'll see it, they'll move the ball all the way across. They recognise they have penalty advantage. and they start to stretch Wicklow completely, and eventually Wicklow run out of players, and Belleville have the really good hands here to move it away. And as you can see, Wicklow run out of players very quickly, and even though the pass wasn't the most accurate, it's a really nice and easy run in for Katie Corrigan on her very first AIL start. 2 tries, not bad.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Because herself, I'd say Corrigan and Tilly kind of running the show there. It must be kind of a sign of things to come, maybe, that they'll be leaders for that Old Belvedere.
Yeah, and look, they're so young. They're still learning their trade. They still have so much experience and learning of the game to do. But to be able to showcase the talent that you have this early on and be able to learn from the experienced players around you, they still have the likes of Dana O'Brien to come in, and while obviously Brittany Hogan, Dervin Nicovard's injured obviously, but she'll be around, and she no doubt will be, you know, helping those girls out, and those in her position who'll be obviously filling her spot. But the Old Belvedere have a really, really good mix of experienced heads in there, the likes of Leslie Ring, and then obviously these youngsters coming through that are full of talent, and you know they're not shy and they're not afraid to get stuck in and show what they're about.
Moving on then, Railway Union 71-7 over Cook. They also had the rescheduled game over Setonians. But looking at this Cook game, Hannah, 9 different try scorers. It really shows the strength and depth that you were talking about before. Yeah,
look, obviously Railway runners up last year, they're always going to be strong, and we know that they're obviously missing a couple of internationals as well in a way, and the likes of Lily Pete isn't here playing in this either, but they still have a number of players who can do serious damage here. And I mentioned her a little bit last year, but Ava Ryder, who gets on the end of this first try here, she is another young player, and this is what our pathways are doing. They're producing and giving us opportunities to see these young players who are starting to now stand out at senior level, and she scores the first try here and does very, very well for Railway. This ends up being a washout, 72-7. I know Cook do score in the first half through Niamh Marley, but Railway are completely and utterly dominant here. Steph Carroll has a ridiculous amount of speed. I think she beats, 12 or 13 of the Cook players here who can't get near her. And they still then have the likes of Aoife Doyle to come in, and Nikki Caughey there at 10 for them to be able to run the show and be that experienced player is phenomenal for them. I think she hits 8 conversions as well for them. And their ability to just keep getting scores, keep the scoreboard ticking over is phenomenal. And they have a new head coach here in Stephen Costello. Obviously, he's taken over from JC last year, and he will want to put his own spin on things, but he'll be able to do that at a much quicker rate because these players already have really good structures behind them. They already know what it's like to win. They know exactly what standards they need to hit in order to achieve their goals. And so, Railway are looking like they're in a really, really promising position, despite, being down a few players that are still yet to come in for this season.
So that's the Railway side of things. If you're on the Cook side of things, how do you look at development there?
It's tough. Look, games like this don't help. They knew coming into this that they had a huge task ahead of them, and unfortunately, in the position that Cook are in, and look, this is a brilliant try here by Niamh Marley, and it's great for them to get some sort of reward after all the hard work they're putting in, because nobody likes to play a game and not get scored at all, and 10, 12 tries being scored against you. But for Cook, it's about taking the small things in these games, not trying to look at the result as a whole, but picking out little bits here and there and working on how we can improve it. So is it our set piece that we want to focus on, or is it our tackling, is it our handling or our passing, and trying to improve that week on week in order to, try and improve the squad or our game as a whole. And again, setting up these structures. Do they have goals? Are they getting good numbers at training? Can they work on things if everybody's there? And I've no doubt these girls are giving as much as they can. They're probably just, their development is a little bit behind, purely from the point of view that Railway have experienced internationals there, and Cook don't unfortunately have that same level of experience in their squad. It will take time. There will be games where they will see opportunities to try and get some points in, but against the likes of Old Belvedere, Bowes, Blackrock, Railway, it's about damage limitation, and whether they can get a score or two like they did here.
From the Railway point of view then, obviously they're showing dominance here and did so well last year and several years before that as well. But is it important for them to show that dominance then and not drop points early? Yeah,
look, and I think, particularly against the likes of Cook, where they go up fairly early and the points are being racked up, I think there's a level of respect there to show that we're not going to let up here against Cook, you know, that they maybe easily could have taken the foot off the pedal, but they want to be respectful. They want to play the game like they would against anybody else. And so they keep pushing on. There's also a lot of girls there who are competitive and know that when all the internationals come back, they're going to have to really start fighting for their places. And here's their opportunity to show that. You know, and when you're playing a team where you are the superior team, you want to be showing that level of dominance, and you want to be trying to bring up the standards across the 23, so that when you come up against the more difficult teams like UL Bows and Belvo and Blackrock, that your team are physically ready for it, and you have that experience in place from anyone that needs to be called upon. You know, and you want to build that, I suppose, week on week morale and confidence, and try and build a bit of momentum going into the next game.
And obviously they're pushing up the table now as a result. We'll have a look at that in a few moments. But first of all, UL Bows racked up 82 points against Galwegians. Fiona Hayes must be absolutely over the moon here, I'd say. Yeah,
look, so obviously very similar to Railway and Sim Costello inheriting a fairly decent team. You know, Fee Hayes, a UL Bows stalwart in her own days and a Munster legend, has inherited a fairly decent team here in UL Bows. Similarly enough, UL Bows are not at their full strength. They still have the experience of the likes of Claude O'Halloran playing, but they are missing the likes of Nicole Cronin, who usually pulls the strings for them there. And for Fee Hayes, this game, she probably doesn't learn an awful lot about her team. She's still only taken over the reins. Yes, obviously she used to play, so she knows them quite well, but she again wants to put her own mark on things after coming from Ballincollig, and she's in a very different situation to where she was in Ballincollig, where UL Bows are expected to win an awful lot of games, whereas Ballincollig, you know, there were definitely some games where there was no pressure there because there was no expectation to win, and that's something that maybe Fee will have to try and take on board and try and get the best out of her players. She has some phenomenal players there, and the likes of Steph Noonan, who's been, you know, a stalwart in that Munster team for the last number of years, has been doing really, really well. And this game against Galwegians was fairly handy in the end here. Look, they still have to get the job done. They still go and score 12 tries. As we mentioned earlier, I was really impressed by Kate Flannery, 10 out of 12 conversions. She pulls the string really well. She sees the backfield really well and recognised opportunities when there was space here. And we've had this discussion many, many times before about the 10 role for Ireland in the future. And if she keeps playing the way she is and gets more opportunities at under 20 level, you know, she can be another real option down the line for Ireland at senior international level. Looking at the other side of things, it's tough. This was a tough day for Galwegians. They probably always struggle to have massive numbers in their squads purely because of a location-based type thing, you know, and they have long-term players like Orla Dixon, Grace Brown-Moore, and have been trying to keep this team going for a very long time. And then obviously Mary Healy and Nicole Fowley at 10. But Nicole Fowley has been rewarded for her form in recent months and is now in with the Irish team. And so she's now not playing AIL for Galwegians. And while obviously, like, Galwegians are surely delighted that she's been involved in this, she's been pulled away from the club side, and that hits them massively. When your leader, your kicker, your kind of the conductor, the person who pulls the strings is not there anymore, and you're expecting someone else to step into that role who may not be as familiar, who may not be as confident, you're going to see a decline in performance. And for Galwegians, you know, that's been really tough for them. And unfortunately, like 82-0, I was shocked when I saw the result, but you know, looking at this, UL Bows were far, far too strong for them, and Galwegians need to get some sort of structure in place. Their defence needs a little bit reorganising. Their tackle technique probably needs a little bit of work there. They're kind of falling off a lot of players, and we see there Chisholm Aguero scoring a couple of tries. Her brother's in the Munster Academy. You know, there's that family ties and connections there down in Munster, but UL Bows are continuing to produce these young, outstanding players, and similar enough to Old Belvedere, there's a lot of young players there who are mixed in with that experience, the likes of Claude O'Halloran. And then when you've a coach like Fee Hayes who's done it all and played senior international rugby, she can give you that that experience and that whole kind of drive of, I've been here, I know what it's like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and like, believe in me and trust in me and we'll get there. And at the start of the season, I probably wouldn't have seen UL Bows as top contenders, but they're proving me wrong with the scorelines and the tries that they're racking up.
Could be a dark horse.
Could be a dark horse.
Time for a quick break now. Watch our Energia AIL captains compete in the Straw Challenge, and we'll be back then to preview this weekend's games.
That's one.
For now, Gemma's winning. Stop it. Go on. Okay. Perfect.
You're watching the HerSport Energia AIL rugby show brought to you by Energia. We're back here to take a look at the table just to give you a lay of the land heading into the weekend. It's looking a bit spicy already there, Hannah.
Yeah, look, obviously we're only 2 rounds in, so there's an awful lot of rugby to be played yet. Obviously, those teams at the top there, Bows, Railway, Belvo, they're all 2 wins from 2, fairly expected. Ballincollig, in fairness to them, doing quite well. Disappointed obviously with last weekend's result, but they'll be hoping to build on this and stay in that top half of the table. But you obviously then look at the likes of Blackrock, they've still only played once, they've got 5 points, so this early on the table is a little bit skewed. It's skewed a little bit, so in a couple of weeks we'll have a better idea of where teams really are at and a better idea of kind of where they should be in the table, I suppose.
So then looking ahead to this weekend's games, we have Setonians and UL Bows, Galwegians and Railway Union, Cook and Ballincollig, and then Wicklow and Blackrock. So diving into that, Setonians and UL Bows, a chance for Setonians to restore a bit of order?
Yeah, look, obviously Setonians would be delighted they got off the mark last weekend, but a much bigger challenge now up against UL Bows. They are at home, they tend to get really good home support and play a little bit better at home for some reason, but they've added a couple of new additions into their squad there, but they'll be led by the likes of Mary Healy and hoping that they can get a win. But I'd say the way UL Bows are going, they're high in confidence and they should win this one fairly handily.
Touched on Chisholm Ugueru's tries there earlier. She's just so fast and powerful. She seems to be picking up a bit of momentum and hype as well.
Yeah, look, as I mentioned, she has that family pedigree there. She got a lot of hype at the end of last season because she scored a phenomenal try in the Energia AIL Cup final for Railway. She's a young player. She kind of burst on the scene a couple of years ago for Munster. I think she was injured or stepped away for a year and is back, but I think she's still only very, very young and has a huge career. And this is the 3rd or 4th time I've mentioned a teenager or a really young player kind of bursting onto the scene and doing really well. And that's what we want to see with Ireland. We want to see those structures, those developments and those players coming out of the back of that. So particularly the under 18s at 7s and 15s, last couple of years have been really, really fruitful for us and has produced some phenomenal players, and hopefully we continue to see that and then they make it to senior level and start having a real impact on our team.
And Galwegians host Railway Union. This could be another tough one for them.
Yeah, look, Dave Clark has a tough job in his hands this weekend, particularly to try and build up his players and the morale and get confidence going heading into this game. There's a lot of teams where you go, this is going to be a tough one. But, players, when you're the underdog, sometimes it gives you that little bit of impetus. We've nothing to lose. Why not just go out there and give everything? And Galwegians have always been a team that'll do that. And as I mentioned, led by the likes of Orla Dixon, captain, who's been there very, very long time in the centres there. They'll be saying they're on their home patch. Railway have to travel to us. I don't really care how good they are. We're going to kind of steadfast. And look, they'll be looking to keep that scoreline down and maybe try and get over for a couple of scores themselves.
Cook then against Ballincollig. Obviously Cook yet to get off the mark. Do you reckon this could be the week then to make a dent in that?
If any week there's going to be one, it's definitely this one. Look, Ballincollig will be disappointed with last weekend's result. You know, they got off to a flyer in the first round, winning their first game, and kind of were brought back down a peg or two last week. But for Cook, this is the game. This is the opportunity for them to get the win. I think, you know, for them, they're at home, you know, they don't have to travel. It's a very long journey for Ballincollig to get up there, so they need to try and use that to their advantage. They'd be hoping to go out and get a lightning quick fast start and then kind of defend for their lives almost in that. But this should be the pick of the games in terms of how tightly contested this should be at the weekend. And I'd look nothing on Ballincollig, but I'd love for Cook to see all their hard work and their effort rewarded over the last couple of years to get the win on this and try and kickstart their season.
On the Ballincollig side of things, obviously they had Michelle O'Driscoll, Gillian Coombs, Heather Kennedy and Roisin Normand decking out for Munster there against Barbarians, fostering that kind of strong team connection there as well. Yeah,
look, there was a number of Irish internationals and Energia AIL players playing for the Barbarians and against the Barbarians this weekend, obviously. But it's a phenomenal occasion, Munster Barbarians. It's been played a number of times over the last couple of seasons, and we're seeing more and more Ireland internationals being picked for the Barbarian side, but even for the girls who are playing for Munster and representing Munster. Anytime, Munster's a very proud province, obviously, and particularly rugby is as a huge part of their culture and tradition, and anyone who gets to pull on a Munster jersey knows how privileged and lucky they are, and then to get to do it against a Barbarian side, you know, is phenomenal. I'd say it was a great atmosphere for them, and they'll be buzzing after that, you know, and looking to go into this game kind of building off that momentum.
For sure. Last year's champions then back in action this weekend. I'm sure they'll be firing on all cylinders there.
Yeah, look, they had an off week. It's the way it kind of goes with the AIL this year. But Blackrock had a great start to the season, managed to get a bonus point, handy enough win there, and they'll be raring to go. You know yourself when you're playing and you're watching every other team play and you're just itching to play. I'm sure part of them didn't mind when the weather was so bad that they had an off week, but yeah, look, everybody just wants to play rugby and show how good they are, and Blackrock's another side like Railway who are very, very competitive, and they know they've an awful lot more internationals to come back in, and so people are trying to put their hand up early and stake their place in the team and solidify it there, so that even when the internationals come in, you know, they're not getting kicked out in the place and stuck on the bench. So it should be a good one. They should win fairly handily in my opinion. For me, they've kind of, from what I saw in the first game, they've been the front runner so far.
And then just on that as well, obviously they have quite a few debutants, as you say, stepping in for those international players. How do you kind of cement your place in that team or even get them settled in quickly?
Well, look, I think that the easiest thing to do is do your job and do it well. And a lot of the times it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be flair. You know, you don't necessarily have to score or make a try-saving tackle. You just have to know your role and do the simple things. You know, make the pass when it's on, make the tackle when it's in front of you. You know, be really good at rucking and communicate well with your teammates and bring that kind of positive attitude. And a lot of the youngsters that we see, as you said, they've no fear. And I think that's a big thing. You have to come into it and just go, I've been picked because I'm good enough, and this is my opportunity here to show that I'm good enough, you know, and if I do my job well enough, then hopefully I'll get to stick around and keep being handed a jersey.
Well, just to recap then, here's your fixtures for the weekend again, and the start times and the venues listed there. You can keep up to date with all the action on Irish Rugby, where you'll have the Energia streams and highlights, as well as coverage over on HerSport.ie. No game for Old Velvo this weekend, Hannah?
Yeah, every team gets a rest every now and then, so they'll be keeping a close eye on all the teams that are playing this weekend. Gives them an extra week, you know, a training to sort a few bits out. Obviously their set piece is going well, but they'll have other bits that they want to kind of fix on and rely on, and particularly those new youngsters coming in, it gives them another opportunity to really get to know what way this team wants to play and get to understand how their teammates like to play, and I'm sure they'll come out firing next week.
And just, you touched on it there, but you think the pick of the games is Cook Ballincollig?
Yeah, just because I think, to be honest, the other games might end up being slightly a little bit one-sided. I hope I'm wrong. But the Cook Ballincollig, both teams, obviously Ballincollig want to get back to that winning ways. Cook haven't won yet, and so they'll be looking to kickstart their season. So for me, that should be a really tightly contested one. As I said, my head says Ballincollig, but my heart says Cook.
We'll have to wait and see and look at that one to find out about all the action. This has been the HerSport Energia AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. Thanks so much, Hannah, for joining us this week.
No worries, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you in the next episode.